Hello, and welcome once again to Season 5 of Let's Talk MedTech, the premier podcast for the medical device and diagnostic industry. Today, we've got iRhythm's CFO Daniel Wilson on the show. iRhythm, as you know, is a company that lies at the intersection of AI, wearables, and the cardiovascular space. So, super excited for you to hear this conversation. So, without further ado, let's talk MedTech with Daniel Wilson. Well, Dan, hello and welcome to Let's Talk MedTech. Thanks for coming on the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Omar.
Awesome, awesome. Listen, I'm excited about this conversation about iRhythm, and I just want to really delve into our talk today. But first, I'm wondering if you could kind of set the tone or lay some groundwork for us. Can you talk about iRhythm and the problem that it's trying to solve in the industry?
Absolutely, yeah. Happy to start there. So, iRhythm's actually celebrating our 20th year of company history this year, and 10 years as a public company, and it's been quite a journey. And really, what's unique is the vision that was originally set by our founder, Dr. Uday Kumar, is exactly the vision that we're continuing to execute on. What he saw as a practicing electrophysiologist is patients. Um, uh, being diagnosed with arrhythmias, struggling with traditional Holter monitors. And these are capital equipment that is used for 24, 48 hours. And arrhythmias by nature are intermittent. And by only monitoring for 24, 48 hours, you're missing the full picture of the patient. And what Dr. Kumar's vision was a long-term continuous monitoring, essentially patch, combined with back-end artificial intelligence analytics to analyze that data and pick out exactly the clinical insights that are relevant for clinicians. We're now treating nearly 3 million patients a year, and it's been quite a journey, through those 20 years, and really proud of kind of the pioneering that we've done over those 2 decades.
Oh, wow. So the platform uses FDA-cleared AI to help detect arrhythmias earlier and more accurately. But can you dive a little bit more deeper and explain how this technology works and why it's so impactful?
Yeah, absolutely. So, our product Zeo Monitor monitors a patient continuously for 14 days. The patch, and wish I had it here to show you kind of a picture of it, but patient can wear it seamlessly. They can shower, sleep, exercise, and really go about their normal day to day. Um, and by monitoring for 14 days, we're capturing on average 1.5 million heartbeats. And over 98% analyzable time in the data that we're collecting from the patient. 1.5 million heartbeats is a lot of data to then sort through. And so you really do need AI tools on the back end to be able to review kind of the volume of data there, and again pick through or pick out exactly what's relevant. We have generated over 140 peer-reviewed publications, kind of proving the clinical superiority of our technology, and it's really combining both the wearable, but again the AI on the back end as well as a clinical operation. So the AI does a portion of it, and then we have cardiac technicians in our IDTF operations that review that data, ultimately deliver a report back to clinicians. What's critically important is that physicians can take that report within a matter of minutes, know exactly what's going on with that patient, have confidence that they have the real answer with those patients, and then can move on to caring for those patients.
Now, I've been covering medtech for a very long time, and I've covered iRhythm before. And I think it's worth pointing out that you all have been using artificial intelligence. I know that's a huge buzzword, but you guys have been using that since before it became, the thing that
Sure.
everyone would talk about. So, you have about a decade of use with it. So I just wanted to point that out that AI is not new to you all. You've been using it for quite some time.
Absolutely. It's funny, if you look back in those 20 years, we've evolved, originally from expert rule algorithms
Sure.
to machine learning to deep learning and continuing to innovate from there. So it is foundational to our business. You really can't take it out of our business. Um, it's critically important, particularly with the scale that we're at, serving nearly 3 million patients a year.
Now, with 30% of new prescriptions happening earlier in the care pathway, what kinds of challenges or opportunities has iRhythm faced in bringing arrhythmia detection into primary care settings?
Yeah, it's so I've been with the company nearly 7 years. So I've had a front seat to kind of this evolution, and it's been really exciting to see. Um, from my perspective, and maybe from the industry's perspective, the more you can manage out of primary care, the better it is for patients, for the system, for payers, and ultimately getting to answers, sooner. Cardiologists, we have a stat, over 50% of counties in the US don't have a cardiologist within the county, and over 80% of rural counties don't have a cardiologist. So really leveraging primary care, and using Zio as kind of a workflow tool, a rule in, rule out tool to make sure, patients get answers sooner, and importantly, um, make sure qualified patients are the patients that ultimately end up, at the cardiologist. So it was a natural evolution. We've leaned into it in a big way. We've organized our sales team to move into primary care, and it's been fun to see kind of that evolution over the last several years. When we first started, it was interesting. I had a question, or are cardiologists going to support this, or are they going to feel like they're losing control of the patient? It's been the complete opposite. This is really helpful to them as well, electrophysiologists as well. Again, they want to see qualified patients. They don't want to see a patient just to put on a Zio and then realize that patient doesn't need to be in their office. So they've fully supported it. They're helping with the education up to primary care, and it's been really encouraging to see it. You have to have really good operational workflows to support that as well. And so our service is, digitally delivered. We have a digital platform, Zio Suite, and we're also EHR integrated in over 50% of our volume now. That is critically important to make sure primary care, cardiologists, electrophysiologists are all working together. And that's been a key enabler of that.
There seems to be a lot of acceptance. I want to kind of drill in with this because where there's acceptance, there's adoption. But there are an estimated 27 million people in the U.S. at risk for undiagnosed arrhythmias. How is iRhythm planning to reach this population, and what strategies are being put in place to address this need?
Absolutely. And this has been really exciting. We see our business shifting from reactive to proactive and ultimately to predictive. And I'd say we're along that journey already. And I mentioned being with the company for 7 years. I was actually advising the company prior to the company going public, 10 years ago. And this was part of the strategy at that time. And even as far back as um, uh, Avude's original vision founding the company. It's taken a lot of, effort to get here, but really encouraging what we're starting to see. So the idea is, patients are either not having symptoms or those symptoms are being confused with another, issue that the patient is dealing with. And there's a lot of clinical data to point to here that shows patients are either having symptoms that it's noted in their medical record, but they're still not getting monitored, or their symptoms again are confused with other situations. What we're now seeing with a number of kind of partners of ours, they're taking the approach to proactively monitor individuals that are at risk of undiagnosed arrhythmias. And you mentioned the 27 million, based on our estimates. We believe there's 27 million patients out there that are potentially undiagnosed with arrhythmia. So working with some innovative partners to identify patients that have certain risk factors within their populations and proactively monitoring those patients. And what we're seeing is, um, y- even without kind of really sophisticated targeting, what's coming back is patients with a high number of patients with undiagnosed arrhythmias, and sometimes as high as 80 or 90% of patients being monitored, again, asymptomatically, they're coming back with confirmed arrhythmias in their medical record. So it's been exciting to see that. We believe we're just getting started. It's a smaller part of our business today. We have a lot of things that we're working on to make that even more sophisticated and targeted. Again, along the lines of predictive, as I was mentioning, and we're really excited about that opportunity.
Oh, well, you mentioned that you're working on a lot of things. I want to hone in on that for a second and talk a little bit about iRhythm's pilot program for sleep disorders.
Yeah.
Um, how does the wearable technology and diagnostic process tackle the limitations of traditional in-sleep studies?
Yeah, the way I see it is the sleep market is very similar to the cardiac monitoring market, 15, 20 years ago. And I think we could take a very similar approach to home sleep testing as we did in cardiac monitoring. There's a lot of overlap between sleep and cardiac disease, particularly arrhythmias. And we know that our, physician customers, um, you can't just manage one part of a patient, right? And
Sure.
just manage the arrhythmia. You got to take a whole, holistic view. And there's significant overlap between sleep disease and arrhythmias. 80% of patients with atrial fibrillation have some type of sleep disorder. So we want to kind of streamline home sleep testing in the same way that we streamlined cardiac monitoring. And we have the channel with cardiologists. We have the channel with primary care, which is generally where patients are ultimately presenting initially. So we believe we have all of the ingredients to make a positive impact in the sleep market, like we have in cardiac monitoring, and we're just getting started with that.
Uh, As detection is shifting and becoming more proactive and predictive, how does the company see itself managing the data, the workflows, and cost of early detection across these different health conditions?
Absolutely. So um, you have to. I was mentioning kind of taking all of that data and drawing out the relevant insights, and that is critically important. Physicians are strapped with time. If you just, unload a bunch of data on them,
Yeah.
it's going to be overwhelming and you're not going to get, the answer that you're looking for. So it's been a key part of our business. It always has been. Taking that data, again, drawing out the most relevant insights, and delivering that to physicians in a, really efficient way. And I think clinical evidence is a big part of it too, right? So with the clinical evidence that we have generated, there's confidence that what we are delivering to the clinician um, is accurate. They have trust in it, and that allows them to move quickly, review the report, know what they're looking at, have confidence that that what's in there is correct, and be able to move on to caring for that patient. So um, you really it's a lot of behind the scenes work to take that data, condense it down into those relevant insights, for our customers, to allow them to work efficiently.
Okay. Now, I understand that Quentin Blackford, he is at the helm of the company right now, and he helped scale Dexcom into a multi-billion-dollar company. What lessons from his experience are being applied to iRhythm's growth strategy?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels there. It actually had an investor tell me when Quentin joined that what Dexcom had executed on over the last 5 to 10 years at that time was exactly what iRhythm needed to execute on over the next 5 to 10 years. So a lot of similarities there in terms of patient monitoring, and scaling the business globally, really. So we've stood up a global business services center to allow the company to scale efficiently. You have to be operationally excellent internally to scale to the levels that we're at today. So a lot of parallels. Quentin's been a tremendous addition to iRhythm and setting the vision for the company and allowing us to kind of operate, excellently to scale the business the way we have.
Yeah, and I think too, I think what we're seeing with iRhythm is basically we're seeing the company take an issue and or solve a problem and make it convenient for the patient to I want to say to wear because it's a wearable, but just you have a technology that's it's not that visible. It doesn't stick out. It doesn't stick out like a sore thumb, and it's something that can be used to really help monitor the patient and fit in seamlessly with their life and their lifestyle. And I think that's you're talking about the parallels with Dexcom. That's kind of the parallel that I see with
Yeah,
the continuous glucose monitors and with the Zeo patch. Yeah.
I think you're spot on. And we moved recently to our new form factor Zeo monitor. Our prior form factor was Zeo XT, which was already best in class. But when you compare Zeo monitor to Zeo XT, that miniaturization, 72% lighter, 55% smaller, versus our prior form factor, that has been really important as we've been scaling the business, going into primary care, going into proactive monitoring. And I forget exactly what the generations were at Dexcom, but someone has had a parallel or commented that there was a parallel, I think G6 to G7 maybe, that miniaturization and again, fitting seamlessly into patients' lives. It's probably a bit undervalued, but it is a critically important part of the business as we've been scaling, particularly into primary care and into proactive monitoring.
Is iRhythm looking to expand the platform to address other conditions beyond arrhythmias and sleep disorders? And how does the company decide which new opportunities to pursue?
Yeah, great question. We have big ambitions. We believe there's a lot that we can, a lot of value that we can deliver. If you think about kind of the real estate that we have, monitoring a patient for 14 days, can allow us to collect a lot of information and ultimately deliver relevant clinical insights back to the patient and clinicians. Today, we have just ECG alone on the patch, as well as an accelerometer that gives us, information as well. We have a platform that we're building, a multivitals platform that will start to bring in addition to ECG, SpO2, respiratory rate, heart rate variability, other parameters that will allow us to deliver deeper insights into other disease states as well. You mentioned sleep. Ultimately, we believe we can deliver a sleep diagnostic off of that platform as well. And I think there's a tremendous amount of other opportunities, heart failure, other opportunities to deliver insights. How we choose, really, we look for unmet need. That's originally how iRhythm started, was identifying an unmet need and developing a solution for that need. That's absolutely one aspect of it. If you think about the channel that we have built with primary care, with cardiology, with electrophysiology, I think there's a lot of opportunities for us. And it sometimes that's a challenge. We want to do it all, but we got to be selective and make sure we're choosing the right priorities, getting focused on those, and executing on those.
What would you say are the biggest obstacles to scaling iRhythm's platform for proactive and predictive care, and how is the company working to overcome them?
Yeah, great question. I would just say as a pioneer, there are no shortage of challenges, things that you have to work through, and we've had a fair share in our history. I like to say where we're at today is earned success.
Sure.
We've had to work through those challenges and have really proven to be a very resilient organization. Within kind of proactive and predictive, I would say the idea of value-based care has been there for some time, and I'm optimistic we'll continue to move in that direction as an industry. The models kind of are regularly shifting, around exactly what that looks like. I think that's one challenge. We're still in predominantly a fee-for-service environment.
Mm.
Um, we did look to generate clinical evidence that would support a positive recommendation from the USPSTF for proactive arrhythmia monitoring. Those require really big trials, and we had one kickoff right before COVID. It was terrible timing, and ultimately the enrollment didn't get there due to COVID and wasn't powered to show the results needed to get to a positive recommendation for USPSTF. Where we have found great success, though, is kind of in the Medicare Advantage space, the value-based care um, partners that are, not waiting for USPSTF. They're taking their own view. I know I have undiagnosed arrhythmias in my population. I know that it'll be much less expensive to monitor those patients in their home versus waiting for them to develop and end up in the ER, end up in urgent care, and get diagnosed there. So the pitch really is, these patients will get diagnosed at some time somewhere. You really have the choice to determine, will that be earlier in their home or in a ER setting, and that is resonating. It does take innovative partners, forward-thinking partners that are not waiting for large kind of clinical evidence. We are trying to generate that clinical evidence and the economic evidence to support, partners coming on board, and we've seen really good traction. It was the fastest growing segment or channel in our business last year. Would expect that to be the case again in 2026. So just it requires finding that right product market fit, the right customers that are willing to try these. And one thing I would say, it's generally easier to get someone to convince a partner to try a pilot, so long as it's not a big lift to implement a pilot. And once you do that, we always come back with the data. We're a data first company. We'll come back after 1,000 patient pilot and present the data back to them. Here are the patients we monitored, the demographics. Here's all of the arrhythmias that were diagnosed within that population. And generally, with that data, they view it as, okay, the value proposition's being met. I'm ready to roll this out in a bigger way. Encouragingly, every partner we've gotten to a pilot has continued on to a full proactive monitoring program.
That was kind of a tough question to end on. I want to leave on something a little bit lighter. Dan, can you just talk about just um, why you believe in the mission of iRhythm? What is its mission to you, in your own words, and why is this so fulfilling?
Yeah. Love that question. Been with the company for 7 years. Have been through some challenges, some real kind of existential, challenges. And what's always kept me in it is hearing from patients, from clinicians that have experience with Zio, and how important it's been, to their lives. I have a neighbor up the street. We've known each other for years, and then I finally heard the story that he, very active lifestyle, an athlete, was struggling with something with his heart, had 3 different Holter monitors, never got that answer, and then finally found his way to Zio. I wish I would have known his struggles, before, sure, but finally found his way to Zio, got the answer that he was looking for, knows what he's dealing with. He's able to manage it. He's able to stay active. And that's one of many stories that I've heard personally over the years. So that keeps me grounded in the mission, makes the challenges that we work through all that more rewarding. And so looking forward to more stories like that.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Daniel, thanks for coming on to Let's Talk MedTech. Appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. It's great being here and really appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of Let's Talk MedTech. Thanks once again to our guest, Daniel Wilson, iRhythm's CFO. If you love this content, if you love this conversation, and you want to see more news about the medical device and diagnostic industry, please visit us at mddionline.com. That's mddionline.com. And finally, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to Let's Talk MedTech on Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcast.